Thank you so much for joining us today for this chapter of time-hopping hero Ethan's First Leaps. We truly appreciate you taking the time to read along with us. Just a reminder that the English subtitles for this video are accurate, and YouTube offers some fantastic tools to enhance your learning. If needed, you can use the auto-translate function to view subtitles in your preferred language, Portuguese already provided on screen. You can also slow down the video playback speed if you'd like to listen more carefully. Thanks again for spending your valuable time with us. Enjoy the story. Time-hopping hero, Ethan's First Leaps, copyright 2025, chunking to fluency. Chapter 2, The Workshop and the Shadow. A year and a half had passed since 8-year-old Ethan first began saving his pennies, fueled by the distant dream of acquiring a time machine. Now 10, Ethan's world had expanded far beyond the confines of school and his backyard. His days, especially now that summer vacation had arrived, were increasingly spent in the dusty, enchanting realm of Mr. Abernathy's pawnshop, and more importantly, in the hidden workshop behind it. What had begun as a curious fascination had blossomed into a profound mentorship. Mr. Abernathy, with his spectacles often perched on the tip of his nose and his perpetually ink-stained fingers, had taken Ethan under his wing like a forgotten relic. He taught Ethan to identify different types of wires, the subtle hum of a healthy capacitor, and the intricate dance of gears and cogs. Ethan, in turn, absorbed every lesson with an insatiable hunger, his small hands becoming surprisingly adept at handling tools, his mind a sponge for the complex theories Mr. Abernathy would patiently unravel. Their conversations had moved beyond simple questions about time travel. They now delved into concepts like the space-time continuum, temporal displacement, and the paradoxical nature of altering the past. The time machine, once a skeletal frame of metal and wires, had transformed dramatically. It now boasted shimmering panels that reflected the workshop's bare bulb, intricate conduits snaking across its frame, and a control console that pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible energy. The air around it often hummed with anticipation, a low thrum that only they seemed to notice, a melody of latent power. Ethan knew intellectually that such an invention, the culmination of Mr. Abernathy's life's work, would be priceless. The dream of purchasing a time machine had subtly shifted to a quiet, determined ambition. One day, he would build his own. He would meticulously sketch his own designs in a worn notebook, simplifying, innovating, often comparing them to the grandeur of Mr. Abernathy's masterpiece. He was still saving his pennies, not for the purchase of a machine, but for the parts of his machine, a future endeavor that felt both impossible and inevitable. Mr. Abernathy, for his part, often watched Ethan with a peculiar mix of pride and a hint of tiredness in his eyes. Unbeknownst to Ethan, as the weeks turned into months and the machine took tangible form, Mr. Abernathy found himself contemplating its future more and more. His hands, though still capable, sometimes trembled, and there were days when a weariness settled over him that even Ethan, engrossed in his work, couldn't help but notice. Mr. Abernathy would simply attribute it to long hours, but a quiet, unspoken thought lingered in the old man's mind. Perhaps this is where it belongs someday. The increased hours at the pawnshop meant fewer hours elsewhere, and that, unfortunately, included less time to avoid Billy. Billy, a boy a year older and a head taller than Ethan, had always been a fixture of the neighborhood, a loud, unpredictable force that most kids learned to steer clear of. But with Ethan now spending his days conspicuously at Mr. Abernathy's shop, Billy's attention had honed in like a predator. He'd stand across the street, sometimes alone, sometimes with a small, smirking entourage, shouting taunts that echoed off the quiet storefronts. "Hey, Abernathy's apprentice, still polishing old junk for pocket change?" Or, "Nerd alert! Time-traveling losers club meets inside." The words, though hurtful, rarely stung as deeply as they once did. Ethan had developed a thicker skin, and the shared purpose he felt with Mr. Abernathy acted as a shield. What truly began to capture his attention, however, was the raw, unbridled anger simmering beneath Billy's aggressive exterior. It wasn't just typical schoolyard meanness. There was a desperation to it, a constant need to exert control or inflict discomfort. Ethan, with his mind so accustomed to dissecting complex systems and unraveling paradoxes, found himself applying that same analytical lens to Billy. Why was he like this? What combination of events, what past experiences, could mold a person into such a consistently hateful individual? He'd observe Billy from the dusty shop window, noting the slump of his shoulders when his friends ignored him, or the way his eyes would flicker with a strange mix of defiance and sadness just before he launched into another tirade. It was a puzzle, as intricate and perplexing as any circuit board. One sweltering afternoon, a particularly vicious volley of insults from Billy left Ethan feeling less angry and more curious. Billy's face had been contorted not just with malice, but with something else, a fleeting shadow of something resembling pain, gone as quickly as it appeared. It was a look Ethan had seen before, on the faces of adults struggling with hidden burdens. There has to be something more to it, Ethan thought, wiping dust from a control panel. Something deeper than just wanting to be mean. The idea, once an abstract concept from a movie, began to crystallize into a concrete desire. What if he could use the machine, not to see dinosaurs, but to understand? What if he could step back in time, just for a moment, and peer into Billy's past? Not to change anything, not to interfere, but simply to observe, to grasp the events that had twisted him into the boy who stood yelling across the street. The thought felt radical, almost illicit, yet a powerful feeling of compassion, rather than fear, began to take root in his chest. Billy, the bully, might be in more pain inside than he was letting on, and Ethan, perhaps, could find out why. As the summer days stretched on, filled with the hum of electronics and the distant echoes of Billy's taunts, a new, quieter concern began to emerge at home. Laura Pruitt, Ethan's mother, a woman whose vibrant spirit was usually expressed through the splashes of color on her canvases, seemed to be losing some of her characteristic glow. She was an artist, not just by hobby, but by the very essence of her being. Their small house was her studio, filled with the scent of oil paints and the quiet music of her brushstrokes. She would often hum while she worked, a soft melody that was as much a part of Ethan's childhood as his father Thomas's patient explanations of the stars. Laura had a knack for seeing the beauty in the ordinary, a trait she had nurtured in Ethan, teaching him to find wonder in intricate gears and the patterns of light on a dusty window. But lately, the humming was less frequent. The canvases sometimes remained untouched for days, and her boundless energy, once a constant, now flickered like an old light bulb. She'd complain of a persistent tiredness, a dull ache that seemed to reside just beneath her cheerful demeanor. Ethan, accustomed to his mother's effervescent presence, began to notice these subtle changes with a child's acute sensitivity. Though he couldn't quite articulate the vague worry that started to coil in his stomach, he'd offer to help with chores or quietly sit beside her as she rested, a silent observer to the gradual dimming of her light. The vibrant hues on her palette seemed to mock the growing pallor in her cheeks, and the easy laughter that had once filled their home now felt more strained, more forced. The shift was almost imperceptible at first, like a slow fade of a vibrant color. Then, the moments of profound fatigue became more frequent. Laura would excuse herself from dinner early, her smile thin and her eyes shadowed. She'd spend entire afternoons wrapped in a blanket on the sofa, the sketchbook beside her untouched, the familiar scent of turpentine absent from the air. Thomas, Ethan's father, began to speak in hushed tones on the phone, his brow furrowed with a worry he tried unsuccessfully to hide from his son. Ethan found himself less excited about the time machine, less absorbed by Billy's latest antics. His mind, once a boundless playground of scientific exploration and fantastical journeys, was increasingly consumed by a growing knot of fear in his gut. The silence from his mother's art studio was louder than any taunt from Billy, more chilling than the deepest theoretical paradox. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew, with a child's certainty, that something precious was slipping away, and for all his fascination with time, he felt utterly powerless to stop it. The end of Chapter 2.
Frases-chave de interesse para o capítulo 2, Chunk Phrases of Interest for Chapter 2. Número 1. O Reino Encantador. Number 1. The Enchanting Realm. The Enchanting Realm. Este bloco se refere a lugar que possui uma forte sensação de maravilha e fascínio. This chunk refers to a place that holds a strong sense of wonder and allure. Example: Português. Ele descobriu o reino encantador da antiga biblioteca. Example: English. He discovered the enchanting realm of the old library. He discovered the enchanting realm of the old library. Número 2. Uma mentoria profunda. Number 2. A profound mentorship. A profound mentorship. Este bloco se refere a relacionamento em que uma pessoa experiente fornece orientação e sabedoria substanciais a uma pessoa menos experiente. This chunk refers to a relationship where an experienced person provides substantial guidance and wisdom to a less experienced one. Example Português. O relacionamento deles evoluiu para uma mentoria profunda. Example English. Their relationship evolved into a profound mentorship. Their relationship evolved into a profound mentorship. Número 3. Absorver cada lição. Number 3. To absorb every lesson. To absorb every lesson. Este bloco se refere a aprender com entusiasmo e completamente. This chunk refers to learning eagerly and completely. Example: Português. O aluno ansioso se esforçou para absorver cada lição. Example: The eager student strove to absorb every lesson. The eager student strove to absorb every lesson. Número 4. Desvendar teorias complexas. Number 4. To unravel complex theories. To unravel complex theories. Este bloco se refere ao ato de tornar ideias complexas compreensíveis. This chunk refers to the act of making complicated ideas understandable. Example Português. O professor os ajudou a desvendar teorias complexas. Example English. The professor helped them to unravel complex theories. The professor helped them to unravel complex theories. Número 5. Aprofundar-se em conceitos. Number 5. To delve into concepts. To delve into concepts. Este bloco refere-se à ação de estudar ou refletir profundamente sobre ideias. This chunk refers to the action of studying or thinking deeply about ideas. Exemplo português. Eles passaram horas se aprofundando em conceitos de física. Example English. They spent hours delving into concepts of physics. They spent hours delving into concepts of physics. Número 6. Console de controle. Number 6. A control console. A control console. Este bloco se refere à interface principal para operar dispositivo ou sistema. This chunk refers to the main interface for operating a device or system. Example, Português. Ele ajustou as configurações em console de controle. Example, English. He adjusted the settings on a control console. He adjusted the settings on a control console. Número 7. Esboçar meticulosamente. Number 7. To meticulously sketch. To meticulously sketch. Este bloco se refere ao ato de desenhar com muito cuidado e precisão. This chunk refers to the act of drawing very carefully and precisely. Example, Português. O arquiteto começou a esboçar meticulosamente o novo edifício. Example, English. The architect began to meticulously sketch the new building. The architect began to meticulously sketch the new building. Número 8. A grandeza da obra-prima. Number 8. The grandeur of the masterpiece. The grandeur of the masterpiece. Este bloco se refere à natureza impressionante de uma obra de arte ou habilidade suprema. This chunk refers to the impressive nature of a supreme work of art or skill. Example, Português. Ela ficou impressionada com a grandeza da obra-prima. Example, English. She was awestruck by the grandeur of the masterpiece. She was awestruck by the grandeur of the masterpiece. Número 9. A raiva desenfreada. Number 9. The unbridled anger. The unbridled anger. Este bloco se refere à fúria que não é controlada ou contida. This chunk refers to fury that is not controlled or held back. Example, Português. Ele gritou com a raiva desenfreada de uma criança frustrada. Example, English. He screamed with the unbridled anger of a frustrated child. He screamed with the unbridled anger of a frustrated child. Número 10. Exercer controle. Number 10. To exert control. To exert control. Este bloco se refere ao ato de tentar dominar ou gerenciar uma situação. This chunk refers to the act of attempting to dominate or manage a situation. Example, Português. Ele tentou exercer controle sobre a situação caótica. Example, English. He tried to exert control over the chaotic situation. He tried to exert control over the chaotic situation. Número 11. Infligir desconforto. Number 11. To inflict discomfort. To inflict discomfort. Este bloco se refere ao ato de causar sofrimento a alguém. This chunk refers to the act of causing distress to someone. Example, Português. o valentão parecia infligir desconforto de propósito. Example English. The bully seemed to inflict discomfort on purpose. The bully seemed to inflict discomfort on purpose. Número 12. Dissecar sistemas complexos. Number 12. To dissect complex systems. To dissect complex systems. Este bloco se refere ao ato de examinar e compreender cuidadosamente estruturas ou processos complexos. This chunk refers to the act of carefully examining and understanding complicated structures or processes. Example Português. O trabalho do cientista era dissecar sistemas complexos na natureza. Example English. The scientist's job was to dissect complex systems in nature. The scientist's job was to dissect complex systems in nature. Número 13. A queda dos ombros. Number 13. The slump of his shoulders. The slump of his shoulders. Este trecho se refere à maneira como os ombros de alguém caem, frequentemente indicando derrota, tristeza ou exaustão. This chunk refers to the way someone's shoulders droop, often indicating defeat, sadness, or exhaustion. Example, Português. Ela notou a queda dos ombros dele depois que ele perdeu o jogo. Example, English. She noticed the slump of his shoulders after he lost the game. She noticed the slump of his shoulders after he lost the game. Número 14. Lançar-se em discurso inflamado. Number 14. To launch into a tirade. To launch into a tirade. Este bloco refere-se ao início repentino de ataque verbal furioso. This chunk refers to the sudden start of a furious verbal attack. Example Português. O gerente começou a lançar discurso inflamado sobre o mau desempenho. Example English. The manager began to launch into a tirade about poor performance. The manager began to launch into a tirade about poor performance. Número 15. A placa de circuito. Number 15. The circuit board. The circuit board. Este bloco se refere a uma placa que contém os componentes fundamentais de dispositivos eletrônicos. This chunk refers to a board containing the fundamental components of electronic devices. Example Português. Ele examinou cuidadosamente a placa de circuito em busca de conexões soltas. Example English. He carefully examined the circuit board for loose connections. He carefully examined the circuit board for loose connections. Número 16. O eco de suas provocações. Number 16. The echo of his taunts. The echo of his taunts. Este bloco se refere ao efeito persistente do abuso verbal. This chunk refers to the lingering effect of verbal abuse. Example, Português. Mesmo depois que ele saiu, o eco de suas provocações permaneceu. Example, English. Even after he left, the echo of his taunts remained. Even after he left, the echo of his taunts remained. Número 17. Seu brilho característico. Number 17. Her characteristic glow. Her characteristic glow. Este bloco se refere a uma qualidade perceptível de vibração, calor ou boa saúde, única em uma pessoa. This chunk refers to a noticeable quality of vibrancy, warmth or good health unique to a person. Exemplo: todos sentiam falta de seu brilho característico quando ela estava doente. Exemplo: English: everyone missed her characteristic glow when she was ill. Everyone missed her characteristic glow when she was ill. Número 18. Uma característica que ela cultivou. Number 18. A trait she nurtured. A trait she nurtured. Este bloco se refere a uma característica que alguém desenvolveu ou encorajou ao longo do tempo. This chunk refers to a characteristic that someone developed or encouraged over time. Example: Português: paciência era uma característica que ela cultivou ao longo da vida. Example English: patience was a trait she nurtured throughout her life. Patience was a trait she nurtured throughout her life. Número 19. A tela permaneceu intocada. Number 19. The canvas remained untouched. The canvas remained untouched. Este bloco se refere à falta de atividade artística ou progresso em uma pintura. This chunk refers to a lack of artistic activity or progress on a painting. Example português: por dias a tela permaneceu intocada em seu estúdio. Example English: for days the canvas remained untouched in her studio. For days, the canvas remained untouched in her studio. Número 20. Suas últimas travessuras. Number 20. His latest antics. His latest antics. Este bloco se refere às ações travessuas ou chamativas recentes de uma pessoa. This chunk refers to a person's recent mischievous or attention-grabbing actions. Example: Português: nós rimos das últimas travessuras dele durante a festa. Example: English: we laughed at his latest antics during the party. We laughed at his latest antics during the party. O fim das frases-chave de interesse para o capítulo 2. The end of chunk phrases of interest for Chapter 2.
We hope that by listening to the story and reviewing the chunk phrases of interest, you've had a chance to increase your English vocabulary in an enjoyable way. If you enjoyed this chapter and want to continue your journey with Ethan and his time-hopping adventures, please subscribe to the Chunking to Fluency channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share this video with anyone who might enjoy it or is learning English. And don't forget to give it a like. Finally, if you hit the notification bell icon, you'll be sure to know when the next chapter of time-hopping hero Ethan's First Leaps is released. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you soon. Be blessed.